Hello, everybody. Thanks for staying. Hard act to follow, that one. I was going to say thanks to Janet for her keynote. She's dashed off in a car, so I'll kind of wave her down the A1 or something back to London. So today I'm going to be dusting off my crystal ball to talk about the future of retail, and more specifically where we view the role of independence in that future, so independent bricks and mortar boutiques. So first off, I want to start with a question. Please, can you put your hand up if you own or work in a bricks and mortar shop? Oh, good. So it's the right audience if it's not everybody. And keep your hands up now if you also sell stuff online. So same people sell stuff online. Okay, so a bit of a mix. Some of you are, some of you aren't. One last question to start again. So put your hands up if you have bought something except for food in a bricks and mortar shop in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, so quite a few of you. Quite impressive that you've been going out to the shops despite it being Amazon Prime Day last week. So just quickly, a very brief bit on my background before we get started. So I guess if I could be called an expert in anything, which is maybe a bit of a push, it's probably in online marketplaces. So that means businesses that use technology to connect supply and demand together in hopefully a useful and valuable way. Despite them being online businesses predominantly, I've always been attracted to those with a grounding in the real world. So I spent 5 years in hospitality at one point stay, building a business that rented out people's homes when they were away on holiday, and then provided those guests with the services of a hotel. And then after that, I made my first foray into retail in a roundabout way, working for a business called Stuart, which is an odd name, I know, which was a business that offered 1 hour deliveries from store to home for retailers, both for big chains, but also for single shop independents. And then, most recently, earlier this year, I joined Trouva as commercial director. So Trouva was founded in early 2016. It is a community of now nearly 300 of the UK's best independent bricks and mortar shops. So we are on a mission to provide an alternative to the chain-dominated high streets. We're an online marketplace that allows people to discover and shop hundreds of the best independent bricks and mortar boutiques across the UK. We are really careful about the boutiques that we were asked to join our community. Typically they are owner managed, and those owner managers we call are what we call master curators. So one of the great things about this job is I've visited a lot of boutiques in the last few months. It's genuinely opened my eyes to the hours of curation, product selection and love that goes into these boutiques. Every shop that I visit has its own DNA, feel and display. Sometimes it feels almost like going to an art gallery as you tour these shops. One of the main downsides though has been the effect on my wallet. It's really hard going around all these boutiques not to buy things everywhere I go. I noticed one week that I had definitely spent more on products as I walked around than I'd actually earned, which doesn't feel hugely sustainable. But the point is, it's been a real privilege to represent this group of master curators. So, there are three dominant trends that set the scene for this talk, and together they are going to force huge changes in the retail landscape over the coming years. The first is that people are going to continue to buy more and more online. So that's the graph on the left-hand side. If you average it out this year to date, year-on-year growth for online retail is 22%, and it's been a pretty similar story for now half a decade. The second, and this will probably be one that's upsettingly familiar to you, is that the cost pressure is likely to continue to increase. So that means business rates and rent rises. And this will force shops to compete harder for demand to ensure their survival. And then the third is that consumer expectations are going to continue to change. And unfortunately, I don't mean that they're going to be getting easier to please. The fact that I was involved in a business built around the idea of 1 hour deliveries is testament to the fact that people's expectations are already incredibly high, and they're ever increasing. So combined with this, we're seeing some quite surprising developments, which initially seem like they might be kind of counterintuitive to the three statements on the previous slide. For example, Amazon, I'm sure you've seen this in the press, it has been testing, and actually now with the purchase of Whole Foods, the Whole Foods chain is pretty committed to physical retail space. We are also seeing, for the first time in a few years, a decline in the sales of ebooks and an increase in print sales. I don't know about any of you guys, but I was one of those annoying people 5 years ago who bought a Kindle and told everyone that no one was ever going to buy a book again and gave all my books away and was very smug, sat on the beach with my Kindle. And now, flash forward to today, and my Kindle is in a drawer with no battery, and I'm spending my time enjoying the smell and experience of leafing through local bookshops again. And I think there's some other great examples. So over half of John Lewis's online sales this past Christmas were click and collect. We're also seeing things like cafes springing up in Waterstones, and a lot of the stuff that Janet was talking about experiential retail is really coming to the fore. So what's going on? Why are there these counterintuitive things emerging to the trends that I spoke about? So it's a combination of those three factors together. So it's online proliferation plus demand for experiential retail plus competition forcing innovation. And those three things are causing these effects. So next up, firstly, I want you to meet Murloc. So you can see him in the centre-left picture there. You can also see his little house in the photo on the left-hand side. So he's the resident chameleon of a shop called Eastern Biological. I'll read you out the shop's introduction from their Trouva boutique page, their Trouva boutique, because it gives you an idea of where they're coming from. Eastern Biological is a gift and lifestyle store focused on natural history, inspired by places and spaces around the world dedicated to Darwinism. A botanical and zoological haven, the shop's aesthetic takes inspiration from the Galapagos Islands, the land Charles Darwin famously explored in 1835. Instead of eccentric Victorian curiosities, expect a beautifully curated selection of books, design-led gifts, stationery, educational toys, and screen prints, personally commissioned by owner Alf. So what I'm not saying is that you all necessarily need to go out and buy an exotic animal and house it in your shop. But what I am saying, and the point is that you have to be able to tell your story. So it's about defining your identity and then letting it flow through everything else that you do. On the right-hand side is actually a photo of a number of members of our team, some of whom are here today. I sadly couldn't go, but we all went out to a boutique called Earl of East. In the evenings, they hold candle-making workshops in the back of their shop. Really nice idea. Not only does it bring people to the shop and they can advertise it and pretty much every one of them gets sold out weeks in advance, but it also creates a combination of conversation and a deeper experience for their customers, which in turn creates customer advocacy. Also, one upshot is that subsequently pretty much everyone in our office now has bought Earl of East candles and has them burning on their desks, which is kind of nice, but slightly pungent. So the next trend, one reality historically about bricks and mortar boutiques, which is quite hard to escape, is that customers have to be able to get to the boutique. So they've got to be nearby in some sense. They've got to be able to walk through the door. We always talk about at Trouva as offering our boutiques a shop window to the world. It's one of the reasons that our site focuses on boutique stories and pages and opening hours and locations for every single boutique that we list. But this online representation isn't enough for everyone. So it's the ability to transition between the digital and the physical. So as evidenced by the John Lewis click and collect story that I was telling you about earlier. And it's another reason that we offer click and collect on all sales. So a good illustration of this is we recently had some feedback from a boutique, and that's actually the boutique there, Homage, which is owned by Mark and Liza down in Brighton in the Lanes. Apparently they told us that an American customer from the East Coast had discovered their boutique page on Trouva. They'd fallen in love with the boutique and their product range. They happened to be coming to the UK this Easter just gone, for a family holiday, and they made the effort to travel from London for the day down to Brighton specifically to go to that boutique, and then they spent the day shopping the lanes of Brighton. So apparently they spent a lot of money in Homage as well, so they were very, very pleased. I also want to, another reason I like this is I want to draw your attention to the founder quote, which I think is really nice. we really love the idea of independents clubbing together and forming a community. And it's hopefully something that some of you guys can do over the next few days, and that's one of the benefits of getting together like this at these shows. A few weeks ago, I was in Clevedon with a colleague, which is just a little bit further west of Bristol, visiting some potential boutiques. And they told me that a group of the local shops there have clubbed together and formed a committee specifically to raise money to improve the local high street. So they're really taking it into their own hands. They're putting up benches, they're planting trees, they're getting it all cleaned up. It's a really nice idea that together this network of independents is stronger. We certainly find that with Trouva as well. As our community of shops grows online, this unlocks more investment in marketing and more exposure for all of the boutiques in the community, and actually that drives additional exposure and sales for every single one of them. It's all about trust and cocktails. So a great thing about running an independent versus a chain is you guys. So you are what you are selling. It's your amazing ability to create your product ranges. It's the master curators that I spoke about earlier. And finding ways to help reinforce that message is really, really powerful. So to help celebrate their birthday, Future and Found, one of our boutiques, asked us to collaborate on an event for a mix of ours and their VIP customers. We brought together a top interiors blogger from the blog's called Mad About the House. I don't know if any of you guys know it, along with Andrea, who's the shop's owner, and Lucy, who's our creative director, to spend the evening speaking about all things interiors and interior trends. Invited about 50 or 60 people to come along, drank some cocktails. Not only was this a great treat for some of Future and Found's customers and introduced some new people to their brand, but it also created some really great engaging content for us. So we streamed the whole event on Facebook Live, which meant another 1,500 people saw it on the evening. So the brand benefit was massively amplified as well. It's a nice example of both the combination of drive for differentiation, but also blending online with offline. I'm really just setting this up for Warren, who's doing the next talk and did a very successful talk yesterday about social media, but I couldn't resist just mentioning Instagram briefly. So some of our shops are really smashing it, and there's a few of them, I'm not ashamed to say, have more followers than we do. The one on the left, we actually picked, I was discussing with the team about which one we might want to include. It actually has a lower following, but they're a pretty new store, and they are adding users really super fast. As I was talking earlier, this is a great way to get your personality across and your story of the shop out there to the world. You'll notice that if you look at their grid, it's not just product shots. It's a mix of lifestyle, objects, and also a cute baby, which I think always really helps. Our creative team, particularly our creative director, always telling me, and this has led to me deleting my entire Instagram feed twice and starting again, that the key is to make your feed a combination of cohesive, beautiful, and engaging. And it really works. So on the right are 3 Trouva boutiques who are doing a particularly good job. They have great following. So, Idleman has 34,000, Foodie Bugle 33,000, Earl of East London, so that's where we did the candle making shop. They've got 20,000 followers. So if you're going to stay for the social media talk next and you want an example of some shops that are doing really, really well, then feel free to note those down and check them out. So, what does this mean for independence in summary? So, the scary bit is bricks and mortar shops with the same products and experiences as everyone else are going to fail as these market trends take effect. However, we certainly believe that independents are uniquely placed to be the winners, or some definite real winners in the shaken out high street, with amazing curation, products that you can't find everywhere else, discovery-led experience, and great customer experience. The future is going to be about both offline and online presence. So those with shops with a great online experience that reflects their offline experience and vice versa. Get it right, and you have this amazing opportunity to open up your shop to a global audience. So just to end, I want to read you a poem, which maybe you wouldn't be expecting to have today, but it was actually written by one of our content team, and we tweeted it out, and it got a really good response rate from on Twitter. It was actually after visiting Eastern Biological, which is the shop I mentioned earlier, where the Murloc, our chameleon mascot. The poem is called Voyage of Discovery. Down the road from Hackney Farm is a place where curious creatures roam from wilder spots around the globe. Instead of donkeys, there are dinosaurs and jungle plants all up the walls. Beetles scuttle from the crannies and nooks. Across the table of paper books, a chameleon loves to entertain. With a flick of an eye, his colours change. Instead of ducks, flamingos wade. And wait one moment. At the back of the room, a tiny door leading down to a second floor. Instead of green here, all is blue. Swim forward and creatures move. Fish scatter between the coral and rocks covered in ancient fossils. Whales dive back into the deep and dolphins swim up and meet the waves of intrepid explorers. Reach for the puzzles and games full of animal shapes and names, models of the human heart to teach young children how all the parts of us and them, our leaves, hands, paws, fins and feathers fit into history and slot together. So I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty cool when a shop makes people feel that way. So our team are here all the rest of today at the Premium Buyers Lounge downstairs. There's a couple of them there. I think there's some flyers on the desks with our faces, so come and track us down and say hi. From 3 o'clock, we're also going to be having some drinks. We're serving Prosecco, so come join us for a glass of fizz. And then we're also spending the rest of this week doing a tour of the north of England. So we're probably visiting around 50 or 60 shops that we think could be a good fit. If you think that maybe you have a shop that should be on that list, then we'd also be delighted to hear from you. Thanks very much.